All right, hello there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Majmoura.
And I'm the Viper, and we did totally not just restart after Masmora completely messed up.
I did not mess up anything whatsoever, and this is episode 21 of the Town Center, your podcast dedicated to all things Age of Empires. In today's show, the World Desert Championship 2 and the RedBull El Reinado are now over, and in both cases, the results will shock exactly 0 people. But there is no time to rest in the competitive scene as more and more tournaments keep getting announced, and if that wasn't enough, we now also have the release date for the next DLC. And in order to help us make sense of all of this, today we're joined by Ornlu. He is one of the hosts of the WDC tournament, a veteran streamer and content creator of the scene, and a long overdue guest. Ornlu, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and welcome to the Town Center.
Well, thank you for having me. I follow the podcast every now and again. Always cool to see your insight and the guests and whatnot. So, yeah, glad to be part of the show.
Wow, what a great start. What an amazing start. I have the feeling this is going to be one of the best episodes already. Amazing. And Ornlu, you were about to tell me who you're going to vote for in the American election, weren't you?
Oh, okay.
No, I'm joking.
I voted yesterday.
You did. Early vote.
I said Ornlu, I like your background. I see you have one banner there. I mean, it's not exactly 4 banners, but it's still quite nice.
You know, why need 4 banners when one banner captures the glory that is Ornlu? Also a K-pop poster from my middle school and high school days.
That looks like a big group.
Yeah, K-pop. Is that Korean pop music?
Yeah.
You're big into that?
I was when I was younger.
Ornlu was out there. He's like a BTS guy, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't BTS the new big... Or maybe this is old at this point.
It's old at this point.
Is it old? Really? I feel like it was yesterday.
Well,
time flies when you have a kid.
Yeah, welcome to being a dad, my friend. Welcome to being a dad. It's going to happen more and more, by the way. Okay, my friends, let's start with Red Bull. The tournament has now been over for over 2 weeks, so I don't think we need a spoilers warning here, but we just got one regardless. And what was probably the least surprising result ever, Hero was finally able to take home his only missing Grand Slam, and he did so by beating my dear co-host in the final 5-1. Leary and Hart finished 3rd and 4th, followed by Tato and Sebastian as 5th and 6th, and then the last 2 spots went for MBL and ACCM. Ornlu, you're our guest, so let's start with you. What are your thoughts on the tournament as a whole?
Well, I mean, it seemed like it was a good experience when it happened. I think that...
Wait. What was your thought on day 1? Did you enjoy day 1?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did.
So, like, on the one hand, it was massively beneficial for me, at least in the short run. So that felt good, and it helped me feel involved, which I've been feeling not that involved recently. But on the other hand, do I want this to happen at the expense of a major AoE tournament? No, not at all. So a little conflicted about it, but I guess I'm just glad I was there to help keep the show going.
We need to explain, just in case folks are not aware of this and didn't watch the tournament. So there were some massive technical problems in the first day of the tournament. The stream started... How delayed were they? Like 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. This started way too late, but the games did not start later, and that means that Ornlu was the savior for everybody, and everybody just tuned into Ornlu's stream. You might have hit one of your biggest peaks, I would assume, Ornlu.
Oh, by far.
Really?
I think so.
What was it?
Around 7,000.
7,000. Well, there you go.
What it seemed like with the Red Bull event is once you look past the flashiness of the great production value, and it was really great, and I'm sure it would have been nice to be there in person, it was a very stock standard tournament. I think that the games were basically what you would have expected. No major upsets. I think that the Hart victories were probably the most interesting one, but that was still Hart. Empire warsing it out, just getting a huge lead in Feudal Age, and then snowballing that a bunch of times in a row. But I mean, there were some good series in there. Obviously, Viper Leary was really good. Tato Leary was really good. Obviously, the finals were a bit of a unfortunate circumstance for our stalwart hero.
Now you saved it.
Yeah. But I mean, people had fun. Games were had. Laughs were had. What more do you want?
Okay, I don't want to put words or thoughts in your mouth, but sounds to me like you're not all that excited with the tournament. Was it because you don't like Empire Wars all that much? You didn't think the games were especially good or bad? Or I'm reading too much into it?
At the risk of having a hot take, which I hear is all the rage on this podcast.
We love those.
I think that Empire Wars, although it can give you individually very good games, the average game, especially if you watch it over the course of a long tournament, which is what I do, are usually very low. The quality of game is just not that high. Usually it's just, okay, somebody gets a snowball in early feudal age. Obviously, this is pre-market nerf, so that's being utilized a lot. But I don't think any of the Red Bulls have generally had the most exciting average game quality.
How much of the stream itself did you watch, or did you mostly go through and spectator dashboard yourself to cast every game yourself? Were you actually able to follow the production on the side as well? Or?
I was.
Okay.
It was really good. Obviously, everyone there did a great job. Looked like people were having fun. And when things were running smoothly, I mean, it's really hard to argue with the quality of the show that you guys were able to put out.
Yeah, I think it might be things might be a bit different depending on whether you're there or not, right? It's obviously, you always get the extra vibe when you're present at location, right? So for those who were there, I think they're going to come at it with an amazing experience no matter what. Even if the games were, I tend to agree with Ornlu on that though. Empire Wars on average probably have worse games. I think Red Bull 5, for example, I seem to recall there was a lot of good close sets. That might also be because we had 16 players then, right? So the fact that we just had 8 players now, and it felt quite short, right? Over 4 days only.
Mm.
And for example, me and Hera also, we didn't play on the Friday. So I also felt like it was a very short tournament for my sake. I think in total I played 4 sets, and one of them was the best of 3. So, and I went to the final, right?
Yeah.
So for others, it's it might have been a short tournament as well. But yeah, on average, probably games are slightly worse because it is probably way more snowbally in the early phase of Empire Wars. And then it's often a player will just carry out the lead. It might take 10 more minutes to finish the game. He already has such a good lead from the start that he doesn't lose from there. But yeah, as a player there in person on location was obviously an incredible experience for myself.
Must have been fun.
What do you attribute that to, Ornlu? Is it because it starts too early? I mean, you don't have the Dark Age, obviously. Is it because there's less time to prepare? Is it because people need to sort of blindly guess what the opponent is doing? It's one of the critiques that I've heard a lot of times. What do you attribute to the fact that you think that the games are a bit more snowbally, less interesting on average?
Well, I think that there are a few reasons. First is definitely Empire Wars itself. There is just less time to prepare. That includes scouting. That includes different build orders. I mean, people say that the Arabia build orders are very one-dimensional these days, but it's still that time frame where you get up to what 28 pop you start with in Empire Wars. There are still so many different things that can happen, and you just don't have that in Empire Wars. Games tend to play out in just a very similar way because your starts are just so sped up. And then the maps themselves generally in Red Bull tend to favor that much more aggressive play style in the first place. So it's difficult to wall and get yourself built up, where you can see the more diverse unit compositions in later games. Not all the maps, obviously, and obviously not all the games. I'm just talking more broadly on average.
There is also to that the openings often can be hard counters purely from opening.
Good point.
That's in random map, you can kind of recover and adapt to a counter opening. In Empire Wars, it's way harder to make that instant transition to react to what is probably a counter opening in many cases. So I think that also contributes.
Yeah. One thing that I don't understand, and maybe one of you guys can explain to me, but whenever you're watching on the stream, the games always start at minute 2 or 1:30 or whatever. It changes all the time. And in one of the games, which thankfully Neely was there to notice it right away, but one of your games, Viper, I think it was the Sicilian with the Sergeants thing, you went straight for Fast Castle, right?
They missed the opening on that?
They missed the opening.
I didn't miss the opening on my stream.
When we started seeing it, you were already up. And thankfully, Neely noticed it right away. He was like, "What? He's already up." But if he didn't, I think I wouldn't have noticed it. Whenever I'm watching, I have my second monitor on the side. I'm looking at something else as well. So I feel like I wouldn't have noticed it. And this happens a lot of times. They just start from minute, 1:30, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. Does anybody know why?
I think it has to do with, we play without delay, right? And it takes a while for Mapu, who was the observer, to get into the game. And then production obviously has to tag along. So sometimes, they had some issues spectating as well in the final, as there was some downtime, right? So I'm not sure. It might just be that it takes a while for him to get into the game and find it quickly enough. Mapu obviously has a little bit less experience than others in finding the game, so maybe, I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. I don't actually know.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Orion, your thoughts on the tournament as well, on your performance?
No, tournament was great. obviously it was my first time playing in front of such a big audience, right? Because I missed out on Red Bull 5 because I didn't make it to the semifinals. I didn't get to play in front of the Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull 6.
The 5 you won. Because it's actually interesting because I remember you're saying that was one of your craziest experience right now in Spain. And I was wondering, what, you won Red Bull 5, but there was no live audience in Red Bull 5, which is something I had forgotten. Yeah.
Right after COVID, so or like kind of even in COVID maybe. No, yeah, just the feeling of playing in front of an audience was insane. Like that's also where I'm kind of sad that it sounds weird. Part of me felt bad that I advanced straight to the semifinal because I missed out on playing in front of the audience on the Friday as well, and that experience is just insane. But now overall, like I think for myself personally, it was a great tournament, great experience. So many people coming up to me saying hi and wanting a photo, autograph, whatnot, and having a quick chat, and also from gameplay wise, I think. Especially the set against Lear was obviously incredibly good. From my performance-wise as well, I think that was the best set I played, and I felt pretty good in that set. And finally, obviously, I would have liked it to be closer, not only for myself, but also for the show and the community's sake. But I mean, Hero is a tough cookie to beat these days. So
tough cookie.
It ain't easy. But yeah, that Saturday, the semifinals against Lear, I felt like the response the audience gave me and everything. I'm not sure how well the audience watching from home was able to catch the atmosphere there.
We can hear it, pretty much,
it was insane. And yeah, I felt like that felt like I had won the tournament, essentially, the way they retrieved me after the win. So that was probably my best experience. Like when I started and joined esports, like not even esports, like when I got interested in esports and I watched like StarCraft and such, I saw them playing on stadiums in front of audience and fans, and like that was like on my wish list, and now I got to experience it. So yeah, just absolutely incredible experience for me.
It was such a distant dream back then, and now it's here. You know, it's crazy. How many people was it? 400, 500 people? How many people?
I think it was more because they said they didn't have enough seats even at the end, so they must have miscalculated something. Yeah.
Crazy. You know, something that I've noticed when I was watching you play, I had the feeling you were a little bit faster than usual. You were a little bit speedier than usual. Then I went to look for evidence, and I actually found evidence. So on average, you have 100 APM, but here throughout the tournament, you had 125. Did you actually notice it? You felt like speedier than usual? You think it was the adrenaline? Were you nervous?
No, I think it's more Empire Wars just forces you to have like really high APM from the second one, right?
I thought about that, but even outside of that,
yeah, I mean, like I feel like my play in general has been on an upwards trajectory the last 5-6 months, so I feel like maybe that's also part of it. But I mean, I've always had it in my locker that I can turn up the speed if I need to, right? When I play on my almost doubt APM levels on ladder, it's not like you cannot play faster, right? But it's also like when you're chilling with the chat on the side, you're not really necessarily forcing the issue, right? But in a tournament, obviously, you're laying it all out there, so it just comes natural, I think.
I think Dowd has just, for the record, 60 on average, I believe. It's not even 60. That slow.
I saw a post on Reddit that like compared like the last 40 against, and Dowd and T90 has the same APM.
Yeah. Ooh, I did not notice T90. All right.
So whenever T90 makes fun of Dowd's APM on his streaming and casting,
Dowd knows what he has to do next time.
Exactly.
Ornlu, you feel like being speedy and being fast is more important on Empire Wars, or not necessarily?
Well, Empire Wars in general is more execution focused, and any sort of game mode or map that lends itself to, I guess, prioritizing that aspect of AoE 2 play is always going to be, like, the faster you are, just the better you're going to be when it comes down to just executing those early builds, having as clean micro as possible. So I'd say in Empire Wars, on average, it is more important, but I don't think it's the most important thing if you look at the more holistic side of AoE 2. Although it is becoming more important as the game is more execution focused these days.
I agree.
I think that the ratio of speed impact in Empire Wars versus random map is definitely higher. Yeah. So
heavier in Empire Wars, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting. So I loved the tournament. I thought the location was amazing. I'm watching it obviously purely from a viewer's perspective. I'm not even overly analyzing the games or anything like that. I'm just sitting here, just watching, just letting the show wash over me. So the location was amazing. The games were amazing. I love the games, and I'm actually a little bit opposite of you guys. I find myself having less and less of a problem with Empire Wars. I used to think like, oh, what do we really need Empire Wars, man? But now what?
Did I ever say I have a problem with Empire Wars?
Okay, well, you didn't say it directly. I guess Ornlu said a little bit. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ornlu, but you hinted at it, all I want to say. In any case, so I loved the tournament in general. I thought it was amazing. I agree with you. It felt shorter than it is. Right, so I knew it was going to be short, but then when you're there, it's even shorter than I actually thought it was going to be, which is crazy to me for think. So 2 negatives that I want to say, and again, very viewer, very spectator oriented. I feel like the drafting process is way too long, man. It takes way too much screen time. And this might be just me. I find it incredibly boring. And I know that for players, it's very important to know all the mind games and all of that, but I cannot see the mind games. I don't know what mind games you guys are playing. I guess you guys have like bubbles above your head. So I'm going to pick this because he's going to counter pick because of that. I don't see any of that. So because I find it a little bit boring. And I feel like Red Bull did everything they could to make the process funny, with the little wooden pieces here and there, the marble races and all that, which is cool, but it still didn't land for me personally.
Oh, I complain about this on stream all the time, among the many other things I always complain about. No, I see no reason not to do the draft ahead of time. I don't even know why it needs to be a spectacle at all. Just before the day starts, do the draft for like the first set. And then you just by the third or fourth game or whatever, just do the draft. Then there is a lot to talk about with casters, so they can fill plenty of time between sets when it comes to analyzing the draft. But that's more like with the completed set of civilizations and maps. I think that there's very little added when it comes to watching the civs and maps get drafted live. I think it just slows down the broadcast.
Well, in a player's shoes, drafting on the table like that is really hard.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's been hard.
Harder, yeah, I imagine. Yeah,
way harder. Yeah. I suggested as well on location that we do draft beforehand on PC, and we just pretend draft.
Then just
on the table
mimic.
Even.
Wow.
Yeah, like we just pretend, and then it's like we can pick our saves way faster, then and it becomes faster, right? And we just have to act a little bit, for the people at home. But
I guess they don't trust you to act well, I guess.
No, but they want. I think it also helps them to control the pace of the show, as in like, okay, if they have time, a set is fast, then okay, let's just make sure we get the draft. But then it's like if it's running close towards the end of the day, they're like, okay, we just do the draft on. Like I think Leary against. There was one set at the first day that didn't have a draft.
Wasn't shown. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
For example, Leary Tatooine? Was it?
Could be, or Leary Hera, maybe?
No, Leary Hera. Yeah, sorry, you're right.
Yeah. And then it's like towards the end of the day, okay, then they just cut the draft, right? So they have that possibility, right? I mean, there was a whole massive table, they built a marble race. They want to use it, I understand that, right? But from a player perspective, I way prefer to draft when I have my Excel next to me and I have all the civs visible to me.
I can
then
imagine.
You don't forget about Georgians in the grand final or something like that.
Did we forget about Georgians? Is that what I'm hearing?
I messed up. My plan there was to leave a lot of good saves open, so I did like weird bans kind of, and then I had initially banned Jordans every set, so I didn't even write them down as one of my saves. And then it was like he picked Saracens first, and I was perfect, Hans Portuguese, and then he picked Jordans, and I was like. Not that it made a difference for the outcome, obviously, but that's just an example of like where it's way harder to draft.
Okay, that's
way harder to draft.
Crazy.
I also forgot to draft one of my home maps that I had cooked up a masterpiece, so I guess I got to save that one for next time.
Oh, so you're not going to reveal? Nobody watches this anyway.
I cannot reveal now.
Nobody watches this anyway. By the time next Red Bull comes, the masterpiece is not going to be applicable anymore. So
if that map is there still, there will be a masterpiece.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so the other negative thing that I have is too little side content. And I guess it's just a function of all these things we've been talking about. The tournament was way too short. The drafting process was way too long, in my opinion. And, little interview here with players, little interview there with audience member, little game here, little game there, There were like these Riley segments, which are funny. I love Riley. It's funny as always. But even those were just so short. There was one that really had potential, I felt like, was him explaining why castles are placed on a hill. And then he was like running up the hill and he was getting really tired. It was actually funny. It was like 30 seconds. I'm like, that's it? It's just so much wasted potential, in my opinion. But again, these are very...
I think as well, that I think they need more time beforehand if they want to make more side content, right? Yeah. To the point where... Because this event was 4 days, right? If they brought everyone there 3-4 days beforehand, they can make a lot of side content. And they can also sprinkle it in depending on how fast the day is going, right? So... I think even this event, they did some spontaneous recordings, right? I think Riley explaining crenulations or what it was like recorded 5 minutes before they viewed it.
But that was like 20 seconds long, 30 seconds long. And you can tell. You can tell it was very much ad hoc. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so big thing about the tournament, of course, in the finals in particular, was the stand ground patrol move. I was wondering how to call it, bug abuse or bug or whatever. So to just remove all the charged language, just call it move. Ornlu, your thoughts on the whole thing?
I think that it made zero impact on the outcome of the tournament or the outcome of the series. I think that it's not something I want in Age of Empires. I don't think it's a good thing for Age of Empires, but it's in the game. It's not explicitly banned. I don't fault Hera for using it. Do whatever you can to win the game.
It's in the game. Sorry, you just said that. I had to think about the EA Sports. Sorry, go ahead.
EA Sports.
Pretty good. Go on.
Needed a bit deeper voice for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm too monotone. Yeah, it's in the game. It's not very compelling to watch at times, but if it's not banned, it's in the game and you can win with it. I don't see why you wouldn't use it.
Mm-hmm. So you already made your opinion known, Viper, and before you did so, everybody was complaining about it. As soon as you said you're cool with it, everything died down a little bit. I felt like
I was traveling home the day after, right, and I opened Reddit on the travel home, and people were just going ham. Yeah. No, but I have obviously talked about it before, but like I also don't think it's good for the game because it's like. But in the end, like for it to be effective, the opponent has to engage into you. So it's like the opponent does on paper a bad move to make your patrol effective, right? And we have used this move in CS or like stacking on to hit buildings and such in the past.
For ages,
exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know how effective it was with, for example, doing that with Paladins, right? So, I mean, like if I would have lost that game with Portuguese, maybe I would have felt a bit more annoyed about it. But in the end, it had no outcome, no impact, like Orne said, on the final. So it doesn't matter. But I can already share that that's not going to be used by anyone in tournaments going forward because it's already kind of universally agreed upon that it's going to be banned.
Is there a players' council where folks are going to agree to that?
Yes.
I know that for the NAC, it's going to be banned, so that's cool to know.
And every other tournament going forward.
Cool. At some point,
people that don't like it don't have to worry about it. I mean, like Hera as well was one of the guys that said it should be banned, right? So it's not like he is like had this secret trick that he wanted to abuse and take advantage of forever.
For sure. You know a funny thing? You know what Dave's most popular video is? Is a video about infantry units and how to win. I think it's titled "How to Win Every Fight with Infantry Units," and it's him basically explaining exactly that. This stand ground patrol thing. So this has been known for years, and Dave's video, I think it's like 6 years old or something. But I do have to wonder, why didn't more people use it? Is it just because people didn't realize how powerful it is? Is it because people are just lazy to sort of incorporate a new move in their repertoire? What do you think happened there?
I used it with Eagle Warriors in 2013, essentially. When Aztecs was the meta, 2012 maybe even, and I was training with Doubt. Doubt got so mad because he lost every single Eagle fight. But essentially what we did then was like we patrolled in on stand ground, then we took 1 or 2 runners to the sides to pull units, and we then switched to attack move, right? But that's like when you come from further distance and like you have to engage, right? The way Hera did it is different than what we used to do it in that regard. Also the way Dave did it on the video, I assume, where you just patrol in that very tiny space, right? So it's still different, while in the past, it used to be like patrol still longer and you just do small micro tricks in between. I don't know if Dave's video was just like the patrol on like 2 or 3 tiles.
I think it was. I think it was like what people used to do in CBA all the time.
Okay.
Like I guess in Dave's video, one of the things that I remember is that you're supposed to patrol in stand ground, no attack stance, supposed to patrol in no attack stance, and then go to aggressive. Once you're in the middle of a group, you turn it.
That's different, yeah. That's the different way we used to do it back then.
I think the move or the technicality of the fact that units suddenly lose the collision boxes, I think it's pretty much the same and what makes the move strong, in my opinion.
I mean, that type of micro is definitely where it originated from, right? Yeah. So it's like probably just been perfected by the newer CS pros, so to say.
Yeah, Ornlu, so you just imagine people didn't know about this. Most folks were not aware how strong this can be.
Especially viewers probably have not seen this a lot. I mean, as Viper was saying, I mean, it goes back a long time, but of course now with lag being so much less than it was, you can be so much more precise in how exactly you can do that sort of micro. But yeah, I mean, it's been around for a while. It's not something I think most people really like doing, but hey, it was there. It happened.
That's an excellent call with the lag. I never thought about it. That's an excellent call because, if you think back to Voobly, by the time you're back to aggressive, your units are already somewhere else. So it's a lot harder to do, a lot harder to pull off with the lag and all of that. I mean, folks are not going to know this anymore, but back in the Voobly times, the good old Voobly times, when you go to lure a boar, especially in a high ping game, you actually need to pull the villager back before you hit the first time, because otherwise you're going to lose the villager. I'm sure you guys remember all of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And back in Volvo, you had to hit twice, right? You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Back then, it had to be twice. Also important. Okay, so then last thing I want to bring up about the tournament is the viewership. We hit a peak of 85,000 live viewers, which is probably a lot of people have already heard, is an absolute record in our scene. There's an interesting article on echarts.com, which I'll be linking down below. And according to the article, the viewership was fueled by an increase of 50% on the YouTube audience compared to last edition. I think people are slowly but surely waking up to the YouTube audience. Can you speak to that, Ornlu? Have you ever thought about streaming on YouTube as well? Do you do it? What are your thoughts there?
I never tried it. I've just never really seen that it would be worthwhile for me because I think I'm still way too small of a content creator for it to really matter. But and I don't even know if I have the ping to do it anyway. But it's something I definitely should look more into, especially since I have at least a decent sized YouTube channel. But I've always
20K. 20K in our scene, I don't think that's decent. I think it's good.
But my YouTube audience mostly is just there for like campaign stuff and tier lists, and I always have a really hard time doing anything multiplayer oriented. It never really gets any views.
I think you stopped streaming on YouTube, right? Why?
Stopped this Monday actually. No, just me. Like me and Tiramis, my editor, we made a decision to start this year. We wanted to switch our channels up and try a different approach. And ever since the baby was born, I just don't have time or energy to produce the amount of content needed for us to follow that vision, so to say, or our goal. So, yeah, we just evaluated the situation and came to the conclusion that this is the best way for us forward. So we're going to try that now. And I wouldn't rule out that we do YouTube streaming again in the future, but for now, full focus on Twitch.
Is there any downside to just clicking go live on YouTube? You're not going to get fewer viewers. If anything, you're going to get more.
But you have to set it. Like there's some work to get it up and running, right? You need to make a title, thumbnail. You need to have the program to run it. You need to make sure everything is working fine. It's just another place where you have to pay attention, and it might take away views from other videos, for example, right? It might make you have less viewers on Twitch, for example, because like let's say 10% of those start watching on YouTube, and then suddenly like if you're getting sponsorship offer, for example, they will look at your Twitch channel and be like, oh, he has less viewers than he would have had normally. I mean, they were not going to think that, obviously, but they will look at the number only. So there's multiple reasons. And yeah, like I think people as well end up maybe watching VODs more on YouTube, which could be a bad thing for regular video uploads as well. So yeah, you know, we're again, YouTube is an experiment, and it never stops being an experiment
for everybody.
And and we're still in the experiment.
All right, so I'd like to move on. And so just a couple of days before Red Bull started, the final of another tournament was played, the World Desert Championship 2, which our team won pretty convincingly. So you guys remember all these folks saying, you know, team games don't really make sense anymore. Team game tournaments don't make sense anymore because of how powerful Gamer Legion is going to be anyway. Well, I guess they were right, you know. Now, Ornlu, you were one of the hosts of the tournament, and if I'm not mistaken, you expressed some sort of disappointment at the numbers that you got in your channel throughout the tournament. So if you don't mind, could you expand on that a little bit? What were the numbers you were expecting to get and why you think you didn't get them?
So I guess like I should say like this tournament wasn't my really idea. I was brought onto it by Huehue Coyotl. Basically, they needed an English streamer to do it, and I was that guy. That said, it's still a lot of work to host a tournament, as Viper knows. And
Me too.
Oh yeah. Of course, you've done
back in the Volvo days. A ton of those.
Yep. And especially now because I have to deal with all the paying out of the prize pool, so that's also a lot more work I need to do. I had a decent month in September viewership wise. If it was my best month before Red Bull, it was maybe by like 5-10%, and that is not worth the insane amount of hour and stress that goes into hosting a tournament. And I think that's just where the disappointment came from, is that it really feels like right now in AoE, it's less about focus on the AoE scene and more focus on just individual streamers. And it's just everything with the viewership in the tournament is just depending on who's casting it. It's like people don't really get excited for the tournament so much as they get excited to watch Viper or Hera or T90 and whatever they happen to be doing at the time.
Is there something you wish you could have done different about the tournament to maybe try to get a bit more viewership, or what do you think you could have done? Is there anything you could have done?
It was tough. I wanted to bring in more big streamers and co-casters earlier on, but people weren't available. And yeah, it's tough, right? I'm not entirely sure how much more I could have done to make people interested in the event. I mean, team game events in general are less interesting to the average viewer than 1v1 events. I mean, I get that, but I think that the final was a disappointment for sure. But I think other than that, we had some amazing sets. And we delivered, for the people who watched the tournament, a lot of really good, compelling AoE too. So in that sense, the tournament was definitely a success.
Does that mean you're still going to try to organize more tournaments, or is this the end of the line for you in terms of tournament organization?
I didn't take any money from Microsoft to organize this tournament because we wanted to get the prize pool to 30,000. If I were to host another tournament, I would need to take some of that money to justify the stress and time that it takes to run a tournament.
Something we like to talk about a lot in this channel, in this podcast, people have accused me of trying to talk too much about the plight of the small streamer. So I sort of try to understand what can we do, because we've talked about this before, and I know we commented on the episode with Tristan, and it's not so much that I think that the current system is bad. It's more like I'm wondering, what can we do more in order to get more talent? One of the things that worries me right now, we have a lot of very good, high quality content creators, but I don't see like a next generation of content creators coming. We used to see that, I remember T90 coming into the scene. I remember Dave coming into the scene. I remember Spirit of the Law coming into the scene, and feels like we don't see that anymore. Now, a reason might be, as Orion has talked about many times before, that everything is just saturated right now, and that's just the way it is. It's never going to change. But a part of me keeps wondering, is there something that we can do so that people get a bit more exposure? Because what do you hear very often, Ornlu? And I'm not trying to say this applies to you or not, but what I hear very often when I'm talking about smaller content creators, people are going to tell me they're small because the quality of their content is worse. And that's it. And maybe that's it. And I'm just trying to overcomplicate things, but I find that a very simplistic explanation, and to try to look for a little bit more nuance. And what I think might be happening with a lot of the smaller content creators is that, especially on Twitch, unless you're constantly like on the top 3 or 4 spots of the category, nobody's going to watch you. Because if you're just a casual viewer that's just looking around, let me see what I'm going to watch now. If you're channel number 4, nobody's going to click on your channel. So does this resonate with you, that people who really want to grow their channels on Twitch just need to fight for more exposure? And one of the methods that people could use is making their tournaments closed streaming. Is that what I was proposing in that episode? Which, again, I'm not saying this is going to change everything, going to make everything better. I'm just looking for alternatives.
No, closed streaming is not the answer. Will mean eyeballs in the tournament are extremely low. That's going to make all the sponsors unhappy. And it does not foster any goodwill between the tournament host and any of the other community members that are codependent on growing each other's streams and YouTube channels. And collaboration is definitely a good thing in Age of Empires. So I don't see closed streaming really helping anything. I don't think the quality of my content really is bad at all. I don't think that's an argument. I think there is a degree of saturation. I do my best when viewership wise, when basically there's a tournament game happening and like T90 and Dave aren't online, or Viper's not casting it, or Hera's not casting it. And I mean, it just seems like, I don't know. For me, it's like I get growth when those guys aren't online, but there's very little it seems like I can do to bring people over when they are online. Because it's like, I'm everyone's third favorite streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just a me thing and I'm just not a good enough caster or entertainer, which is like very, very possible. But it's tough, and I know I've expressed my frustration about this in the past, and it's why I'm probably going to be moving on from full-time streaming pretty soon.
I agree with Ornlu here, right? I think Ornlu's content is great, except some jokes here and there. But whenever my impression, whenever I watch Ornlu co-cast, for example, let's say T9 is doing a tournament or MEMB or whatever, when Ornlu is doing a co-cast with either of them, the response from the chat is always great.
Mm-hmm.
People really love the co-cast, which also begs the question: why doesn't more of them try out his channel? Which is like confusing. But I think we're at the state in Age of Empires where so many people just have their favorites.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're even willing to, because people might come home from work and they're like, okay, do I want to now invest hours and hours to try and see if I like this streamer, or do I just go to the one I know I like and I know I like want to watch? So I think there's a little bit of it's just people are so comfortable where they are that they don't have the energy or time or will to try and discover more. Because people aren't out there thinking, oh, today I want to discover a new streamer, right? That's not, people don't walk around like that. It's something that happens by chance. You spoke about why we don't have a new generation coming up, right? Age of Empires is still a game. Average age is plus 25.
Yeah.
We don't have new 15, 16, 17-year-olds coming in that are looking for streamers or looking to start a streaming Age of Empires 2, right? So there's not going to be that new explosive guy that comes onto the scene and creates a new channel and gets all the viewers, except Barles, who has started making amazing YouTube
that video
content.
recently, the Mind of the Arabia play, that was peak content.
He made another one yesterday about DLCs as well. It's very strong. People should check him out.
All the major content creators are right now in the scene. I was here to see him grow, to see him come and see him grow. And all the comments that people are saying now about the smaller streamers, I heard all of these comments before directed at these people. They're now at the peak. I've heard people complaining about Spirit of the Lodge. You guys remember the Paladin video? Everybody made fun of him because of the Paladin video. You guys remember that? You don't remember? So I think...
was the Paladin upgrade worth it, right?
It was the Paladin upgrade.
Yeah, I remember that.
Such a noob. This guy doesn't know anything about the game. Look where he is now. T9, when he came to the scene, people complaining, he's cringe, whatever. Everybody everybody who's now big has gone through this, and that's why I find this explanation of they're small because their content is worse too simple. That's just my take on it.
But keep in mind, when we came onto the scene, the community was a small fraction of what it is now.
Yep.
We have been a part of growing with the community, right? And viewers have grown with us. So it's not like when we came in, the amount of people is the same as it was back then, right? It's obviously, if everyone comes fresh onto a scene where there's 10,000 viewers to choose from, they might spread around, right? But these viewers grew up with us, if you will. There's not a lot of people that, let's say the last year, I don't think there's suddenly 15,000 new Age of Empires 2 watchers that are spread around channels, right? So, yes, we all went through, in this case, you refer to me and T90, yes, we started from lower numbers for sure. But again, back then, numbers were way lower because there were way less people watching. It has kind of grown together, right? So,
all right, Ornlu. So if you're moving on from full-time streaming, what's in the cards for you in the near future in terms of Age of Empires 2, in terms of your life?
Well, I'm never going to stop doing Age of Empires content, at least not that I can foresee, just because I heckin' love this game. I'm not somebody who wants to do just content creation in general, and I just happen to do AoE. I would not do any sort of content creation if it was not Age of Empires. So in that sense, I'm not going away. Can't get rid of me that easily. And besides all the relationships that I've built up in the AoE community, I don't want to just throw away. But personally, I've been working towards my degree this whole time. And so I probably, as I get that finalized, be looking to go into some sort of international affairs degree stuff in Washington, D.C., or working with the international side of a business or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's going to be a lot more stable than Age of Empires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Age of Empires, you've been doing Age of Empires kind of part-time next to studies, right?
I was until 2020, then it was full-time.
Okay, so you haven't studied then since 2020?
I've only been taking one class at a time.
Okay. So it's been primarily Age of Empires 2, and you've been able to somewhat sustain your livelihood with AoE 2 since then?
Yeah, basically. It's better than if I was working at McDonald's, but not significantly better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
But
having
that's
fun,
Age
and
of
I'm getting all these experiences, and
yeah.
getting to travel occasionally when I actually get
Get
invited
to
to
visit the
events.
Viper.
Yeah, hey, you know, I mean, I get to
Not a lot
visit
of people have
Debbie and
done that.
Eustace, and
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
sometimes Viper.
Oh, there we go. But I don't even think I know this. Like, how did you even get into Age of Empires 2? Like, where did you start? Was it through parent?
Yep.
Sibling?
I think just like you, Ariane, my dad got me into Age of Empires. I was 4 years old.
4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm younger than most content creators.
What?
But I've been playing this game for a long time, so it's a little different. But yeah, no, like I was just watching him play like Joan of Arc and stuff like that. And like my dad's a history professor, and like I really got into the history side of things. And I just kind of kept playing the game and never stopped. Ever.
Did you ever have a dream of being competitive, or were you always like kind of more casually heading towards Age of Empires?
I was more interested in the game itself than becoming the very best at it. Just like understanding the game.
What do you make of all these, historical accuracy discussions? Are you on the side of it needs to be a little bit more historically accurate, or not necessarily?
It's funny because a lot of people who are really into history want the game to be more historically accurate. I really don't care. I think that this is a game. It's not a historical simulator, and anything that make the game more fun and competitive is probably more important. And it's always kind of weird because like a lot of my viewers are really into history stuff because I do a lot of the campaign stuff. And so like we want this game to be more historically accurate. I'm like, no, I want to play a fun game. I want to play a competitive game. I want to have fun playing multiplayer because I enjoy that aspect just as much as the geeky single player stuff. Does that mean I want to see the the Spartans and Athenians and Achaemenids in AoE 2? No. Get that ancient era stuff out of my game.
Perfect.
I have my limits.
Perfect segue. Let's talk about that. Actually, I want to talk first about the balance patch, and then I can get to that. But in any case, we also have the announcement very recently of the new DLC titled Chronicles Battle for Greece, which is set to release on November 14th. And as usual, the DLC is accompanied by balance changes, which are already live. So let's get to those first. By the way, you think 11, 14, is that a meme because of the taunts, or totally casual? 11, 14.
I doubt they put that much thought into
Really?
it.
Really? I think it has to have some meaning. Or do they always release on a Thursday? Because I believe that's a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Do they always release on a Thursday? Because if not, I'm sure that's because of that. Does anyone
Seems like
know
a smart day to release,
right?
The week.
14 or in American. No, what do you guys do for month first? That's so weird. So 11,
month
14.
Year, month, day, year.
So Orion, you're the resident pro here. So what are the changes you feel will be more impactful? Do you like them?
I think most of the changes are good. The ones I'm concerned about still is ballista elephants having ballistics, or getting impacted by ballistics rather. That one I feel like can be pretty brutal because that was a pretty insane unit already before that. And you could argue, now you can out-micro the ballista projectiles. But dude, when you have 40 ballista elephants...
With double projectiles?
Double projectiles, yeah. And the other big one, obviously, is like scorpions with ballistics now across the board, not only Romans.
Is that broken?
I have had instances where I feel like, okay, I don't think it's broken. But I think in the right circumstance, it's going to feel extremely broken. For example, I played a game against Barls. Sorry, Barls, for... mentioning that you lost against me previously, but like I was Franks, he was Vikings. He was in a better spot early game, but when we got to Imp, I survived, and I just went full Scorpions and some bomber cannons. Vikings have no answer, nothing, zero. There will be certain civs in certain matchups. I can see like Vikings against Celts as well, Vikings against Khmer. Obviously, not every civ doesn't have to be viable against every civ, right? But there's so many civs now where I feel like if you don't have bomber cannon, for example, in particular, and you don't have like a powerful cavalry unit, Scorpions are just going to absolutely demolish everything you have. So it's like, I'm a bit worried for those types of matchups. I don't think Scorpions with ballistics are broken otherwise, but yeah, ballista elephants is still my main concern. Otherwise, I think most of the changes were completely fine.
Ornlu?
Basically the same thing as Viper. I am a little I'm concerned that the Scorpions are overpowered. I don't think they are, except in specific circumstances, and I think that civs that don't have bombard cannons or like paladins that are fully upgraded are really feeling it now. I can be really unfun to play against in my experience. Especially if, like, again, you're just getting lasered down by so many units at range.
Hmm.
But I think it's also a matter of people just need to figure it out. Like it's a new experience, and it's a new way of playing AoE. Like you don't see tons of siege units usually as like the core part of an army. So I think that there's still plenty of room for experimenting.
There was one change that I also didn't like, and that is that you can now mine gold from docks. I don't think that's a good change.
No, I think it's not in the game anymore. Today there was a patch
they
release.
passed that out.
Did they also patch antiquatically
They
fishing
did.
ships?
They did. Yes.
Because I've been fishing in Arabia and I keep making those ships and I don't get guild nets.
I
That's
was
why I'm losing.
I was watching you cast a game, and I'm like, you could literally see in Capture Age 2 different ships. You have fishing ships and antique fishing ship. Like, oh,
Exactly.
someone hit the hotkey there.
And wasn't it like if you hit the hotkey, it doesn't get the discount as well?
Yeah.
There was something like that as
Really?
well. Yes.
Yeah, that's
was
what I'm saying.
making
Viper's not
fishes
hitting
with Italians.
Viper's not getting his 11 wood or whatever.
No wonder I lost.
Man,
It
these
all
things
makes sense now.
These things really tell me what a nightmare it must be to code this game when you get things like this when you apparently are not doing anything related to them. In this case, I think it might have had something to do with the oysters that are now available in the new DLC, right?
The oysters aren't even that great, man. It's like 450 gold. The gold mining rate is only slightly faster than a Dark Age miner, and you have a ton of sailing distance as well. I don't know. I feel like I probably played way more of the DLC than Viper has.
We for sure have. For sure have. What about the market nerf? Is it enough, or do you guys like it? Let's start with that. Just to make sure, just so people know this, buying food costs more now. So it used to be 130, now it's 150. And selling food gives you more gold now. It used to be 70, it gives you now 81.
It's just the first couple of purchases though, right? Especially for selling food. But I think it's noticeable. You feel it.
Oh, yeah.
I think market is still usable though, but it's not like I don't know if GL will keep doubt for long based on his continuing performances from this point forward.
I thought you just had doubt as a content creator anyway.
True. Maybe that's he's a caster at this point. Yeah. But no, I think the market change was good. It was good.
Mm-hmm. Does it do anything for the phosphor? Is there anything that needs to be done, Ornlu?
I actually did a podcast with the Fox team a while ago, like a month ago, and we were talking a lot about the phosphor. And the consensus we reached then is that it's not that the phosphor stuff is OP. It's good, but it's not OP. It's just really unfun to play against, and it's also easier to execute than it is to defend against. And especially at like mid to lower levels, that is really the kicker. But I don't think that like even the phosphor nerf or like the nerf to the market is only impacting like the first couple sells or buys of food, because mostly at that point you're just spending it on wood anyway for your unique unit.
What was the market change only against the phosphor? I thought it was just a general, like people use it to fast cast so much and such.
That's I think that tangentially it was they had the phosphor stuff in mind, but I think mostly it's still the fast castle stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I wonder, does it have a big impact? But I actually wanted to know first, Orion, if you think it's even that big of a deal, the phosphor strat. Is it too strong? No.
I have not played against it where I feel like it's hard to beat yet.
Okay. I see it a lot at the 1600 level. Lot.
But that's the thing. I've only played it maybe 3 times against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have played it myself a few times where it feels stupid, right? And I've been successful with it. But again, I feel so many weaknesses when I try it as well, right? But I'm no phosphor strategy expert, so maybe I'm doing it wrong or my opponents are doing it wrong when I play against them. Who knows? But yeah, I agree though with Ornlu. It's just not fun to play against. Okay. Honestly, not even fun to play in my opinion. So yeah. May it be gone, please.
What about the Georgian Manaspa nerf? Is it enough? Or Georgians in general, have they been nerfed enough? Or not necessarily. Hard things, they have not been nerfed enough.
But like, in my opinion, Chinese are still better than Ornlu Arabia, and they got buffed recently. So
what did they get buffed?
Do we need like the town center line of that they start with 15 10 pop? No.
Oh, that from like a year plus ago.
It's a couple of patches ago, but like they got buffed for some reason.
Yeah.
But like I still think Chinese are better when we won Arabia, for example. So it's like, are we going to continue hitting Georgians when? Well, obviously it's just my opinion. I might be speaking out of my arse, but no, I think Georgians aren't as OP as people think. They're obviously good, very good. Don't get me wrong, but like I can see Chinese, Portuguese, these types of civs can beat them. Monaspa is a good unit for sure. It's fine. It was 10 HP from Elite and 5 from regular, right?
Yes.
I think that's fine change. Like, we'll see how they feel now the next couple of months, and we'll see if they have to be. I mean, like, Jordans aren't good only because of Monaspa, right? They have so many other things going for them. So touching a Monaspa doesn't necessarily directly influence Jordans.
I'd still like to see a
So,
creation speed nerf.
yeah, that's fair, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that the scouts don't heal, or the cavalry doesn't heal until Castle Age, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is that their most OP thing right now is just that they win every Feudal Age 1-1 Scout War, for example. That's where the whole snowball begins.
I don't think they're so far out of the line of balance or even design that it's like unsalvageable or anything like that. I mean, it's a far cry from launch Cumans.
Yep, Step Lancers.
Maybe just the fortified churches should be touched a little bit. Just for Georgians, maybe just make the eco boost 5% less. I think it's 10% right now. Just remove 5% of that. It's still going to be like a building you want to build.
But then you have a conditionally worse version of the Romans bonus, right? So you have some weird design spaces that you need to work around.
But it's still a building that gives you safety from raids. Yep. You can produce monks, right? There's still a lot of other benefits than just the 5% eco bonus.
Yeah, I agree. The fortified church, I wonder why it hasn't been touched yet. I'm putting a stone cost to it. Is it too much, too hard of a nerf?
It's a new building. They cannot touch the new building. It's so cool. And
no, yeah, we could touch it in the sense. Making a little stone cost too much, maybe.
Yeah, but if you do that, are you not going to have stone cost for Armenians churches?
No, same thing, of course. Same thing for the Armenians.
But then it's like, Armenians, do they need a nerf?
On water, yes.
So. Do they anymore? Do they still?
I think so. I think they don't need the extra projectile. I think they're already a top water civ without the extra projectile.
That's when I can agree with, but that's still just 1+1 attack, right?
It is one extra attack, yeah.
Yeah, it's one extra attack, but it's just more the fact that it stacks with all the other bonuses that Armenians have.
Yeah, but I think like in late game, for example, I think Koreans, for example, beat them in late game right now. So it's like...
Yes.
But obviously their early game flexibility in the economy is... quite strong.
But again, we're talking about like minor adjustments here and there. We're not talking about sweeping changes, and I still think that speaks well to the overall balance of the game.
Wait. Ornlu, like I know you used to do like these Reddit posts about balance discussions, like Civ.
Oh yeah, I did.
Are
those.
You still doing those?
No. I lost the Excel spreadsheet I had where I did. I stocked. Yeah, no, this was years ago. No, but I did over like 250 Reddit posts on them for like years.
200 and what? 250?
Yeah, like I got through all of the civs. I mean, there were fewer civs at the time, like 7 or 8 times. Like
that's insane.
I did it even before I started doing casting by like a month.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. Okay, crazy. All right, my friends. So let's focus a little bit on the DLC per se now. Then the Battle for Greece, as we just talked about. This one is being labeled as a mostly single-player DLC, and the wording in the announcement explicitly says this is the first of a series of DLC. So we're probably going to get more of this kind. There will be 3 new civilizations, which will not be available for ranked multiplayer, though they will be available for unranked multiplayer. There's also what seems to be a massive campaign with 21 scenarios. It's for sure going to be one of the biggest, right? How many scenarios does a campaign usually have, Ornlu? Is it like
5 to 6?
Right.
So is it one single campaign that has 21 scenarios?
I think so.
I've played through most of it at this point. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you feel free to talk about it. So you're the
I'm
resident
actually not allowed to talk about the campaign in detail
without breaking any.
Without breaking any NDA, but you're the campaign expert here. So what are your first impressions?
I guess I can just say for people watching who are interested in it, it is fun. The voice acting and characterization is really good. And the overall ambiance is much better than what we've gotten recently. And I think Victors and Vanquish aside, the campaigns in general have been very, very good lately. I think that the decisions you make in the scenarios, you mostly won't notice them until it'll pop up later on, which can be kind of cool. I think the gameplay is
sorry to interrupt, but that's an important point, that the decisions that you make in some of the scenarios are going to impact how the rest of the scenarios are going to play out, if I understand things correctly, right? So
there are minor decisions you make in a scenario that will give minor differences or minor effects in later scenarios, possibly. It's fun. I think that the gameplay is it's pretty easy, and I think that without spoiling anything, you just get really OP with all of the different bonuses you get. And I think that the gameplay feels a little too streamlined and cinematic-y almost, but it's still a fun experience, and I would recommend it for sure.
Is it something completely new? Because cinematic-y sounds nice, sounds fun, especially if you're a single player. So you're not a fan of that? You prefer to have a more regular, more old-fashioned DLC or campaign, rather?
Well, I like to suffer. I like really challenging single-player experiences. You know, I want to have to try a scenario multiple times if it's supposed to be a tough one. And I'm, a good campaign player in general.
Did you say before you enjoyed the Victors of Vanquish, or did you say you didn't enjoy them?
I think that the DLC didn't give you your money's worth, but I think that the thing is, I'd already played all the scenarios except for the new ones, so it was just kind of a different experience for me than most people.
And they're a lot more challenging then, if I understand you correct, because I hear that a lot of those scenarios are very challenging, very grindy as well.
Yes. But oftentimes it's like once you get past the early hump, it's usually smooth sailing. Especially in the Viking ones, that's lots of smooth sailing around.
And not so smooth.
All right, Orion, thoughts?
I mean, it's like I'm not overly excited about it because it's single player focused, right? I'm always more if there's like new multiplayer things. I'm way more hyped about it in general. But no, like what I think is really cool is that Capture Age are the ones who developed it, right? So
Absolutely.
With that in mind, I'm obviously looking forward to see what they have done, what they have delivered. Because they, again, were also, as many things in Age of Empires, they started off as a community project, and now they're officially working with Microsoft and Age of Empires. So, I mean, it's super cool. The trailer looks really good, so it looked promising. And yeah, we'll for sure play the campaigns to see what they're like.
Yeah, if only you had early access, right? If only you had it.
Hello, I'm a dad. I don't have time for all the things that people can have time for, okay? No, but yeah, like I'm not sure what's the price of this one. Is it 15?
$15. A little bit cheaper if you pre-order.
I guess depending on how many hours you get out of the campaign, it's still probably a decent value for money potentially. Like they do mention that obviously it's 3 new civs. You can play them against each other, but you cannot, or in single player or with friends, right? But you cannot use it in ranked. So it's like I'm probably not going to play them in multiplayer at all. Yeah,
I would be very shocked if they were allowed in tournaments. It's just
they're. Not gonna be.
I mean,
they're not balanced for it.
They're not balanced. Like I played with them enough. Like, don't mix them in with the ranked civs.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm going to be the resident optimist here. I don't hear a lot of optimism from you guys. I'm going to be the resident.
Don't get me wrong. Any new content for Age of Empires 2 is great,
right?
Except Age of Empires Mobile. But that's still great, even though it sucks.
Whoa! You were a paid spokesman of them.
I had the opportunity to be paid by making a video. I made a video before I knew how the game was going to be. And then I made the video where I called the game out for being a complete cash grab. And then weeks after, I was approached to go to Gamescom and be there in person to advertise the project. So it is a bit weird. It was a different company that was hiring people, so it's not on them. But yeah, I mean,
when you're popular, they let you do everything.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Age of Empires Mobile. It's released now.
Oh yeah,
it's officially
is it?
Out.
I know nothing about it. We can get to it right away, but let me talk.
Keep it that way. Don't look at it.
No, run while you can.
I saw a deal. Like I watched a guy streamed it yesterday.
Really?
I saw a deal. No, 2 deals actually. Both deals. It's 3,800% value. You're making money if you buy that.
Wow.
I'm not even kidding.
I mean, how move away Bitcoin, and this is the online investment of the future.
Have you ever received 3,800% on your investment before?
No.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely no scam, I'm pretty sure. In any case, my friend, so the big thing for me here about this DLC is that we now have a brand new studio working for the game. And I think this needs to be emphasized. And it's not just any studio, it's the Capture Age plus the Rome at War team. And they're not replacing Forgotten Empires, they're working alongside Forgotten Empires, which tells me that this is Microsoft, because people cost money, and from what I've seen, this DLC is pretty big, 21 scenarios, there's a lot of material there. So I have to think this means Microsoft is paying for more people, which means the franchise and this game in particular, Age of Empires 2, is doing really well for them. Because otherwise,
mobile.
well, that one too, maybe. Yeah, and a second studio working for Age of Empires 2 means potentially more content in the future, more regular content. And, if you have more single players that are happy, they might try multiplayer. That means we can have more viewers. I think this is incredibly good for Age of Empires 2. And it's also amazing that it all started because Spirit of the Law decided to use this massive reach to talk about the Remote War mod, and then Microsoft caught an eye, and it just went all from there. So a lot of good things went right here, in my opinion.
Oh, it's always awesome to see community projects come to life. And like Forgotten Empire started as a community project as well. Bert and his 4 friends in the dungeon were creating new civilizations for fun.
Yep.
And 10, 14, 13 years later, I'm not sure when it started, but here we are, right? I took a picture and talked with Bert at RedBull El Reinado, and we talked about just like that everything is looking good and hope we can do more of this, right? So the fact that he's now in a position where I remember talking to him so many years ago where he invited me to try Forgotten Empires, right?
Crazy.
And now he's in a position where he's like making massive decisions on Age of Empires. It's insane.
Back then it was called The Forgotten, if I'm not mistaken.
True.
The Forgotten was the mod.
I remember downloading the mod, thinking it was so cool.
You did. You were one of the million people that downloaded it the first week, I thought. I think it's the first week. He hit like 1 million downloads. His website crashed. He was not expecting any of that. That was so crazy. And I also think this is great for modders, that they see that there's this potential. Of course, they can't expect that every time you make a mod, Microsoft's going to take up on it. But the fact that this is possible, I think it's a tremendous signal as well. And
Victor's and Vanquish as well was a community member that made...
Philadelphia, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you make something cool like that could have an appeal to a larger audience, maybe you'll be one of the lucky ones, right?
Mm-hmm. And what I find interesting, I mean, we know this, but it's just another thing that goes in that direction. They explicitly are excluding ranked multiplayers from this DLC, so they know that the target audience is not the ranked multiplayers. And despite this being such a huge DLC and so big in scope, and they still are completely fine with completely removing the ranked multiplayers, tells me once more how massive the single player base has got to be, right? If they're only expecting them to buy the DLC and it's still worth it for them, again, just goes to show. There's actually a funny quote. I wrote it somewhere here. Let me see. Our most visible cohort tends to be our competitive community, tournament organizers and streamers, but there's a rather massive and understated majority of our players that show up week after week and month over month just to enjoy their favorite campaigns. Yeah, man, I would love to know the numbers on this. I would love so much to know the numbers on this. But yeah, the whole thing. Talk about the civs though, Ornlu. You don't like the civs as much. You don't like that they're in Age of Empires 2, even though it's like totally separate.
I mean, I just wouldn't want them in like the core AoE 2 experience. Like, I'm fine with it as a spin-off. Like, that's totally fine. As far as the civs themselves, I mean, they're fine. They definitely have a lot of mechanics I wouldn't want in AoE 2, like regular AoE 2. I think that like conditional unique techs aren't really something I want. I think that the civs just aren't that well balanced. I hate aura effects. There are way too many of them. There's like 3-4 that you're stacking. Units are a little complicated. Like, as a spin-off concept, I think it's fine. It's fun to do in the campaigns, but it's just not something I want in multiplayer. Like, I'm fine keeping them separate. Mm-hmm. The civs are way more out there than the Romans were, for instance.
Way more out there. Like that.
I mean, even Romans, they were hesitant to put into a competitive play. So.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's why I think that the distinction there is important.
I think they only put it because people were a little bit disappointed. There's no content for the multiplayers. I think that's might have been one of the reasons.
I think also there was a realization that they're not as broken as they might think. So it was like fine to introduce them to multiplayer.
That'd be true. Okay, my friends, then last but not least, we have the announcement of the next NAC, the Noble Apartment Cup. You can watch the announcement trailer on our channel. And I just noticed this the other day. With this tournament, 2024 marks the first time in Age of Empires 2's history we will have 3 S-tier LAN tournaments in the same year. How about that? First time in history. Now, Oren, they actually recorded this, I think, one day before you made it to the boot camp. So
thank God.
Oh, thank God. I was going to ask if you regret not being included, seeing how it turned out.
Have to dress up in a suit like that?
Oh, cool. That looks so Matty Dapper.
It was a really cool trailer, for sure. I liked it a lot. Yeah, no, I'm fine not being it. I have to show up here every month and record things with you. So like I'm doing my share.
Wow.
It's about time they do some work as well. No, I think it was a really cool announcement. I mean, there's still some discussions to be had about the name, calling it NAC after Neil's Apartment Cup and now just Noble's Apartment Cup. I mean,
In theory, different name.
I read a comment on Reddit. NAC is dead. Long live NAC.
Yeah, that's, okay. that's pretty much
that
it.
One is good.
Yeah, thoughts on the name? Ornlu, does this disturb you? Does this annoy you?
I mean, all I can take from this is that I'm being invited on the GL podcast, so I'm definitely going to be invited to cast the event, right?
Ooh.
Right?
Oh, you're asking me, dude.
GL, you can be the change you want to see in the world, right? You say all these good things about my casting.
Does this mean you have not been invited so far?
I have not been invited.
I mean, they've invited players. I wonder if they have. I mean, we're approaching December. Maybe the option's there.
I'm just throwing it out there, GL.
Just to make clear, when I talk about these things, I'm talking from my personal side of things. I'm not officially connected to GL, just to make it clear. No, people don't get the wrong idea here.
They only give him money. He's not connected to them, guys.
Well, freelance. I'm a freelance. I love the team. Yeah. I love working with the team, but I'm a freelance. Okay, so then I've been given a list of things that it's important for viewers and players alike. So sign-ups for the qualifier that will take place between the 8th and 10th of November will still be open until October 31st, so roughly a week from now. The 6 players that make it through the qualifier will then join the 4 invited players, Viper, Hera, Lyri, and Mr. Yo. That's new, that we now know that, actually. And the main event will go from December 15th to December 22nd. And for the viewers, on the last 2 days of the tournament, that's December 21st and December 22nd, there will be a live watch party in Berlin. So you'll get to see the semifinals and the finals. Now, I'm pushing hard for this. I'm not sure if they're going to give it to me. I've been pushing hard for a live quiz show in that watch party. Ooh. How sick would that be? Players against viewers. You know, we pick 2 people from the audience. How sick would that be? I'm pushing for it. If
Ornlu is there, I'm not playing.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully he'll be in the final. Hopefully he'll be playing at the final.
Hopefully I'll be there, man. There's always time. There's always time, guys.
So tickets for the watch party are a bit pricey, I know, but the location is apparently amazing. I know, right next to the river. I've been told to reinforce this and emphasize this, that food and drinks are included. And from what I heard, there will be like a much wider selection of food. So we'll have like vegan
not
stuff.
Only pizza?
Not just pizza boxes. They have like an open buffet, vegan and gluten-free and all of those things. And players and casters will be making an appearance there both days, I believe. And we'll make sure they'll have enough time to talk to viewers, to talk to everybody. So it's not going to be just something that's going to fly really fast.
I think there's even a ticket where you also get a stay overnight.
Correct.
So it's like correct. If you're worried about finding a hotel, it can be included in the ticket.
It's going to be included in the ticket. And if you guys are interested in this, make sure to check the link below. It's in our store. And again, I'm pretty sure that those of you who decide to get there, it will be an unforgettable experience. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so then, before we close this off, Wonder Warriors Cup 2 has been announced. We will talk about that in the next episode. And there's still the SAX Nations Cup going on. And just want to hear from you guys really quick. Who do you guys have winning? China.
Who's in the tournament?
I think Norway's going to win.
Well, listen,
Norway.
China's in the tournament.
Sweden, Denmark. No. I mean, the usual favorite should be, right? I mean, Hera is not playing for Canada, so I don't think Canada has a chance.
They didn't look that great without Hera, to be honest.
China, yeah. I mean,
France is doing really well. Brazil is doing really well. Yes, Vietnam is there too.
Yeah, so China, France, Brazil, maybe Argentina with Nico and his sons has a chance. But yeah, I don't. Finland I think they're playing without Valas, right? But with SMX. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of these teams.
Oh, well,
one
amazing.
of the good teams is going to win.
8 teams.
One of the 8. 2024.
I wanna ask one more thing before we end it, because I mean, Ornlu mentioned earlier that he's gonna potentially move away from full-time streaming. So what does the next months and years look like for you then, Ornlu?
In terms of AOE or
as well? When does this decision happen? Like when do you draw the line? As in, like, okay, I'm officially done.
It basically comes down to when I get my diploma, which I go to the most bureaucratic university in the world. So should be in the next month or so, maybe 2 months. But basically, it just comes down to as soon as I can get my degree and start looking for a job, I'm going to start looking for a job. And then if I get a job and I it works out with me, then I would just transition away from AoE 2.
Okay, but you would still, as you said earlier, continue with AoE 2 as a hobby.
Yes, exactly, and it would definitely be an intensive hobby. Like I really like doing this, and like I said, all the connections I built in the community are really important to me. Not just with you guys and all the other like content creators and pro players, but also like my own Twitch and YouTube community. Yeah. As much as I like to make fun of them, they are it's not something I would want to give up.
Well, Ornlu, all the luck in the world for all of those things, and I'm obviously glad you're going to stay in the community. I'm going to keep seeing you. And everybody at home, if you guys enjoyed the video, you know what you have to do. Like, subscribe, comment, and all of those things. Ornlu, thank you so much for taking the time, my friend. And we'll see each other hopefully soon.
Indeed. Thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun.